The Great Hall of the Galactic Tribunal stretched for miles. Thousands of alien species filled the seats, their eyes fixed on the small figure kneeling at the center. Queen Yuna of the Valorian Empire, once the most powerful ruler in 17 star systems, now wore chains on her wrists and shame on her face. Her wings, the pride of every Valorian, hung broken behind her. They had been clipped by the Tribunal's guards, a punishment worse than death for her kind. The beautiful silver feathers that once spread wide enough to block out suns now dragged on the cold floor like dead things. The High Judge, a massive creature with 6 arms and skin like stone, rose from his seat. His voice echoed through the hall like thunder. Queen Yuna of Valoria, you have been found guilty of defiance against the Galactic Collective. You refused to allow our ship's passage through your territory. You destroyed 3 of our vessels. You dared to stand against the natural order of this galaxy. Yuna lifted her head. Even in chains, even broken, her eyes still burned with fire. Your ships carried weapons meant to destroy neutral worlds. I did what any ruler would do. I protected the innocent. The crowd murmured. The High Judge slammed his fist on the podium. Silence. The Collective does not answer to you. The Collective answers to no one. Your empire has been dissolved. Your people have been scattered. And you, former queen, will serve as an example to all who dare challenge us. Yuna expected death. She had prepared herself for it during the long months of imprisonment. Death would be a mercy compared to the shame she already carried. But the tribunal had something worse in mind. You will be sent to the species known as humans, the High Judge announced. You will serve one of them for the rest of your natural life. This is your punishment. The hall erupted in laughter. Yuna felt her blood turn cold. Humans. She knew of them. Everyone in the galaxy knew of them. They were newcomers to the stars, barely 100 years into space travel. They were short-lived, emotional, and weak. Other species called them the galaxy's children, too young to matter, too primitive to fear. To serve a human was the greatest insult the tribunal could imagine. A queen who once commanded millions would now bow to a creature that most species considered barely intelligent. Take her away, the High Judge ordered. Let her learn what it means to be small. The guards dragged Yuna from the hall. She did not scream. She did not beg. She simply walked with her head held high, even as her broken wings left a trail of silver feathers behind her. The journey to human space took 3 weeks. Yuna spent it alone in a small cell, watching the stars pass by through a tiny window. She thought about her empire, her people, the world she had failed to protect. She thought about death and wished it would come. But death did not come. Instead, the ship landed on a frozen moon called Titan, orbiting a giant planet in a system the humans called Sol. The air was cold and thin. The sky was orange and strange. Everything about this place felt wrong to Yuna. Her Valorian body, built for warm planets and open skies, shivered in the harsh environment. A tribunal officer handed her a small device. This will translate human language for you. Your new master is waiting. His name is Taiho. He runs a repair station on the northern ridge. You will serve him until you die. The officer laughed and returned to the ship. Within minutes, Yuna stood alone on the frozen surface, watching the vessel disappear into the orange sky. She walked. The repair station was small and old. It sat at the edge of a crater, surrounded by broken ships and piles of scrap metal. Smoke rose from a chimney on the roof. A single light glowed in the window. Yuna stood outside for a long time. She did not know what waited for her inside. She had heard stories about humans, that they were violent, unpredictable, driven by emotions that other species had learned to control long ago. She prepared herself for cruelty. She prepared herself for pain. She knocked on the door. It opened, and she saw him for the first time. Taiho was not what she expected. He was small by human standards, with kind eyes and messy black hair. He wore old clothes covered in grease and oil. He looked at her with surprise, then concern. "You must be freezing," he said. His voice was soft and warm. "Come inside, quickly." Yuna did not move. "I am your servant," she said. "The tribunal has assigned me to you. I will do whatever you command." Taiho stared at her for a moment. Then he shook his head. "I did not ask for a servant," he said. "I asked for help with repairs. They told me they were sending a worker, not whatever this is." He looked at her broken wings, and his eyes filled with something Yuna did not recognize. Was it pity? Anger? "Come inside," he said again. "Please. You will die out here." Yuna followed him into the station. It was warm inside, filled with the smell of food and metal. Tools hung on every wall. A small fire burned in a corner. It was messy and simple and nothing like the palaces Yuna had known. Taiho handed her a blanket. "Wrap yourself in this. I will get you something to eat." Yuna stood frozen, the blanket in her hands. "You do not wish to inspect me first? To establish rules? To explain my duties?" Taiho turned from the stove, where a pot of soup bubbled gently. He looked confused. "Why would I do that? I am your property now. The tribunal gave me to you. You have the right to—" "I do not want property," Taiho interrupted. His voice was firm, but not unkind. "I do not want a slave. I do not care what the tribunal says. In this station, you are a person, not a thing." Yuna felt something crack inside her chest. She had prepared for violence. She had prepared for humiliation. She had not prepared for kindness. "I do not understand," she whispered. Taiho smiled. It was a small smile, tired, but genuine. "You do not need to understand right now. You just need to eat and rest. Everything else can wait." He handed her a bowl of soup. It was simple food, nothing like the feasts she had known as queen. But it was warm, and it was given freely, and Yuna found herself crying before she could stop. Taiho said nothing. He simply sat across from her and ate his own soup, giving her the space to feel whatever she needed to feel. That night, Yuna slept on a small bed in the corner of the station. It was hard and narrow, but it was clean, and Taiho had given her extra blankets without being asked. She lay awake for hours, listening to the wind howl outside. She thought about the tribunal, about their laughter when they announced her punishment. They had sent her here to be broken. They had sent her here to suffer. They did not know Taiho. And as Yuna finally closed her eyes, she realized something strange. For the first time since her capture, she did not wish for death. She wished for morning. The first week was the hardest. Yuna woke each morning, expecting orders that never came. She waited for punishment that never arrived. She searched for cruelty in Taiho's eyes and found only patience. It made no sense to her. The tribunal had given her to this human as property. The law was clear. He could do anything he wanted to her, and no one in the galaxy would care. Yet he treated her like a guest in his home. Taiho spent his days repairing ships. Travelers came from across the solar system with broken engines, damaged hulls, and empty fuel tanks. He fixed everything, no matter how old or cheap the ship was. Some travelers paid him well. Others had nothing to give. "How will you survive if you do not charge everyone?" Yuna asked one day, watching him repair a tiny cargo ship owned by an old woman who had clearly not eaten in days. Taiho shrugged. "I have enough." She does not. "The math is simple. That is not how the universe works," Yuna said. "The strong take from the weak. That is the natural order." Taiho looked at her with those kind eyes. Maybe the universe is wrong. Yuna did not know how to respond. In 300 years of life, no one had ever said such a thing to her. She began to help with the repairs. At first, she did it because she needed something to do. Sitting idle made her think too much about everything she had lost. But slowly, she discovered that she enjoyed the work. There was something satisfying about taking broken things and making them whole again. Taiho taught her human technology. It was simple compared to Valorian systems, but there was a beauty in its simplicity. Humans did not have the advanced materials other species used. They built their machines from basic metals and simple circuits. Yet somehow, their ships flew. Their stations survived. They found ways to make impossible things work. "Your people are stubborn," Yuna said one evening, after they had spent 12 hours fixing a navigation system that should have been thrown away years ago. Taiho laughed. "That is probably our only talent." As the weeks passed, Yuna learned more about humans. Taiho had a small collection of music from Earth songs in languages she did not understand, with melodies that made her chest ache in strange ways. He played them while he worked, sometimes singing along in a voice that was not particularly good but was full of feeling. "Why do humans make music?" she asked. "Because life is hard," Taiho said, "and music makes it easier." He showed her human art paintings and photographs and sculptures made by people who had died centuries ago. The art was not technically perfect. Valorian art was precise and mathematical, every line calculated for maximum beauty. Human art was messy and emotional, and somehow more alive because of it. He told her stories of Earth's history, wars that killed millions, plagues that swept across continents, natural disasters that leveled cities. Again and again, humanity faced destruction. And again they survived. "We are not the strongest species," Taiho admitted. "We are not the smartest or the fastest or the most advanced. But we do not give up. That is our gift." Yuna thought about her own people. The Valorians had been a proud race, ancient and powerful. When the collective came, they had fought bravely. But when the war turned against them, they had surrendered. They had accepted defeat because the mathematics said victory was impossible. Humans, she realized, did not care about mathematics. One night, Yuna noticed something strange. The stumps of her wings, which had ached constantly since the tribunal cut them, felt different. She reached back and touched them carefully. New feathers were growing. This was impossible. The tribunal surgeons had used special tools designed to prevent regrowth. They had told her she would never fly again. They had told her she would carry her shame forever. Yet here, in this small station on a frozen moon, her wings were healing. She said nothing to Taiho, but he noticed anyway. He noticed everything. "Your wings look better," he said one morning, placing a plate of food in front of her. "You should eat more protein. It will help them grow." Yuna stared at him. "How did you know?" "I did some research," he said simply. "Valorian biology is fascinating. Your bodies can heal almost anything, given the right conditions. The tribunal's tools only work if the victim stays stressed and afraid. Calm environment, good food, no fear." He shrugged. "Your body does the rest." Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. "You researched my species? Why?" Taiho looked uncomfortable. "Because you are hurt, and I wanted to help." "Is that strange?" No one had ever done such a thing for her. Not her advisors, not her generals, not even her own family. She had been queen for 200 years, and not a single person had ever simply wanted to help her. "You are a strange human," she whispered. Taiho smiled. "I have been told that before." 3 months after Yuna arrived, raiders came to the station. They came at night, during a storm, when the wind was too loud to hear their ships landing. Yuna woke to the sound of the door being broken down. She saw 3 figures in armor, carrying weapons that glowed with deadly energy. "Where's the queen?" one of them demanded. "We know she is here. The collective is paying good money for her head." Yuna's heart froze. The collective had not forgotten her. They wanted to make sure she suffered. And now Taiho would pay the price for sheltering her. She stood up from her bed. "I am here. Take me. Leave the human alone." But Taiho stepped in front of her. He was unarmed. He wore nothing but old sleeping clothes. He was half the size of the smallest raider. Yet he stood between them and Yuna like a wall. "You are not taking anyone," he said. The lead raider laughed. "Little human, do you know who we are? We have killed creatures 10 times your size. Step aside or die." Taiho did not move. "This is my home. She is my friend. You will have to go through me." The raider raised his weapon. What happened next was too fast for Yuna to follow. Taiho moved not toward the door, but toward a panel on the wall. He hit a switch, and suddenly the floor beneath the raiders opened. They fell into a hidden pit, screaming in surprise. Taiho hit another switch, and foam sprayed from the ceiling, covering the raiders and hardening instantly into a prison they could not escape. The whole thing took less than 10 seconds. Yuna stared at him. "You had traps. In your own home." Taiho shrugged. "I am a repair engineer. I like to be prepared." He walked to the communication panel and called for the local authorities to collect the raiders. Then he made 2 cups of tea and handed one to Yuna. "Are you okay?" he asked. Yuna looked at this small human, this strange creature who had just saved her life with cleverness instead of strength. Her wings ached, but it was a good ache now. The ache of healing, of growing, of becoming something new. "You could have died," she said. "For me, why?" Taiho sipped his tea. "Because you are worth protecting." "Everyone is." Yuna felt something shift inside her heart. Something that had been broken for a very long time began to mend. For the first time since her fall, she believed she might be okay. Stories travel fast in space. Within weeks of the raider attack, everyone in the outer colonies knew about the human and the queen. They said a single human had defeated 3 armed killers with nothing but his mind. They said he had refused to give up the fallen queen even when death stood at his door. They said his small repair station on Titan was a place where the broken could find shelter. Some said the stories were lies. Others said they were exaggerated. But more and more travelers began to appear at Taiho's door, and not all of them came for repairs. The first was a Valorian child named Hana. She was barely 50 years older, teenager by her species standards, and she had fled the collectives. Occupation of her homeworld with nothing but the clothes on her back. Her wings had been clipped like Yuna's, though not as severely. "I heard the queen was here," Hana whispered, standing in the doorway with fear in her eyes. "I heard she was healing. I heard the human was kind." Yuna took one look at the child and felt her heart break all over again. This was what the collective did. They crushed the weak. They destroyed hope wherever they found it. "Come inside," Yuna said. "You are safe here." Taiho made soup. He always made soup and gave Hana his own bed without being asked. That night, Yuna sat with the child until she fell asleep, stroking her damaged wings and whispering old Valorian songs that she had not sung in centuries. Hana was not the last. Over the following months, more refugees arrived. A family of Dralians whose planet had been swallowed by the collective's expansion. An old Keth warrior who had lost his honor and sought a place to die with dignity. A group of human miners who had been abandoned by their company when the ore ran out. Taiho turned no one away. He expanded the station, building new rooms from scrap metal and broken ships. He taught the refugees to repair, to build, to survive. He never asked for payment. He never asked for gratitude. "This is madness," Yuna told him one night as they sat watching the orange sky through the station's window. "You cannot save everyone. You are one human. You will run out of food. You will run out of space. You will run out of yourself." Taiho was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "When I was young, there was a flood in my village on Earth. The water came fast, faster than anyone expected. My family's home was destroyed. We had nothing. Yuna listened in silence. A stranger found us, Taiho continued. A woman I had never met. She gave us food and shelter for 3 months until we could rebuild. She never asked for anything in return. When I tried to thank her, she said something I have never forgotten. What did she say? Taiho smiled. She said, "When you can do the same for someone else. That is all the thanks I need." He turned to look at Yuna. "I cannot save everyone, but I can save someone. And maybe they will save someone else. And maybe, slowly, the universe gets a little bit better." Yuna felt tears rolling down her face. She had ruled an empire. She had commanded armies. She had held the power of life and death over millions. But she had never understood what true strength looked like until this moment. "You humans are impossible," she whispered. "I know," Taiho said. "It is our best quality." Yuna's wings continued to heal. The new feathers grew in slowly, but they were different from before. Her old wings had been silver, the color of Valorian royalty. The new feathers were gold, a color that had no meaning in her culture, a color that was hers alone. She began to fly again. At first, just short distances inside the station's cargo bay. Then longer flights outside, in the thin atmosphere of Titan. Each time she spread her wings, she felt more like herself. Not the queen she had been, but the person she was becoming. The refugees watched her fly with wonder in their eyes. To them, she was proof the healing was possible, that the collective could not break everything. That hope still existed in the darkest corners of the universe. The collective noticed. An official envoy arrived 6 months after Yuna had first set foot on Titan. His ship was sleek and black, bearing the symbols of the Galactic Tribunal. He walked into Taiho's station like he owned it, his armed guards spreading out behind him. "You are harboring criminals," the envoy announced, looking around the crowded station with disgust. "Refugees who fled collective territory without permission, and a convicted prisoner who was sentenced to serve, not to rule." Taiho stepped forward. He was still small. He was still unarmed. But something had changed in the way he held himself. He no longer looked like a simple repair engineer. He looked like something more. "No one here is a criminal," Taiho said. "They are people. They came to me hungry and afraid, and I fed them. If that is against your law, then your law is wrong." The envoy's face twisted with anger. "You dare lecture me about law? You are nothing. Your species is nothing. You have been among the stars for barely a century. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. Then, maybe it is time for a change," Taiho said quietly. The envoy stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You are interfering with official tribunal business. The queen was given to you as a servant. You were supposed to break her. Instead, you have given her wings again. You have made her a symbol." "I have done nothing," Taiho said. "She healed herself. I just gave her a place where healing was possible." The envoy glanced at Yuna, who stood behind Taiho with her golden wings spread wide. The refugees gathered around her, Valorians and Dralians and humans in a dozen, other species all watching the confrontation with fire in their eyes. "This is your final warning," the envoy said. "Cast her out. Disperse these refugees. Return to your proper place, and the collective will forget this ever happened." Taiho smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who had made his decision long ago. No, the single word hung in the air like a challenge. "She is not my prisoner," Taiho continued. "She is not my servant. She is my friend. And in my culture, we do not abandon our friends because someone tells us to. We do not bend to tyrants. We do not break." He stepped forward, and somehow the small humans seemed to fill the entire room. "Go back to your tribunal," Taiho said. "Tell them what you saw here. Tell them that the queen is healing. Tell them that the broken are rising. And tell them that if they want to stop us, they will have to come and try." The envoy stared at him for a long moment. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out of the station. His guards followed, and within minutes, their black ship was rising into the orange sky. Yuna moved to stand beside Taiho. You know they will come back. With more than words next time. Taiho nodded. I know. Why? She asked. Why risk everything for us? For me? Taiho looked at her with those kind eyes that she had come to love more than anything in the universe. Because some things are worth fighting for. And as Yuna stood beside him, surrounded by the broken people they had saved together, she finally understood what it meant to be human. It meant never giving up, no matter the cost. The warship arrived on the first day of winter. It was massive, a dark shadow against Titan's orange sky, carrying enough firepower to destroy the entire moon. The collective had sent their message clearly. There would be no more warnings. Taiho stood outside the station, watching the ship descend. Behind him, the refugees gathered, nearly 200 souls who had found shelter in his small corner of the universe. They were afraid. He could see it in their eyes. But they did not run. We should evacuate, Yuna said, standing at his side. Her golden wings caught the dim light, glowing like a beacon. The tunnels beneath the crater lead to the southern settlements. The children could escape. No, Taiho said quietly. If we run now, we run forever. They will hunt us across the galaxy. There has to be a line. There has to be a place where we say, no more. He turned to face the refugees. His voice was calm, but it carried across the frozen air like it was meant to reach the stars themselves. You do not have to stay. I will not think less of anyone who leaves. This is not your fight. No one moved. The old Keth warrior, Duri, stepped forward. He had been dying when he arrived at the station. Now he stood tall, his ancient armor polished for the first time in decades. You gave me a reason to live, human. I will not abandon you now. Hana, the young Valorian girl, spread her healing wings. You saved me. Now I will stand with you. One by one, the refugees spoke. Humans and aliens, old and young, broken and mending, all of them chose to stay. Taiho felt something warm bloom in his chest. This, he thought, is what humanity has always been fighting for. Not territory. Not power. Connection. The warship's communication system crackled to life. A cold voice echoed across the frozen landscape. Humans of Titan Station. You have 1 hour to surrender the criminal known as Queen Yuna. Refuse, and you will be destroyed. There will be no survivors. There will be no mercy. Taiho walked to the station's communication array. He had spent the last 3 months preparing for this moment, hoping it would never come, but knowing it probably would. Now he took a deep breath and opened a channel, not just to the warship, but to every open frequency in the solar system. This is Taiho of Titan Station. I am speaking to the collective warship in orbit, and to everyone else who can hear my voice. He paused, looking out at the ship above. 1 year ago, you sent a queen to me as a punishment. You thought I would break her. You thought I would make her suffer. Instead, I gave her soup and a blanket and a place to rest. That is all. Nothing special. Nothing grand. Just basic kindness. His voice grew stronger. And now you have sent a warship to destroy us. Hundreds of people, refugees, children, the forgotten and the abandoned, all sentenced to death because we dared to be kind. Because we refused to treat a person like property. He turned to face Yuna, and his eyes softened. You gave her to me as a servant, but she became my friend, my teacher, my family, and I will not give her up. Not to you. Not to anyone. He turned back to the communication array. So come down here if you want her. Come and try to take her. But know this, we are not afraid of you. We are humans. We have faced extinction 1,000 times. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars and disasters that should have ended us. And every single time, we got back up." His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more weight than any shout. "You think you are powerful because you have ships and weapons. But real power is not about what you can destroy. It is about what you can protect. And we will protect each other until our last breath." He shut off the communication array and turned to his people. "Get to your positions. The collective does not believe we can fight back. Let us show them what humans and their friends can do." The next 3 hours were chaos. The warship sent landing craft carrying hundreds of collective soldiers. They expected easy targets, a handful of refugees hiding in a broken-down repair station. What they found was a nightmare. Taiho had spent months preparing the terrain. The frozen surface of Titan was covered in hidden traps, pressure plates that triggered explosive bursts of steam from underground vents, false paths that led attackers into deep crevasses, holographic projectors that made empty spaces look occupied and occupied spaces look empty. The refugees fought too. The Keth warrior Dori led a group of former soldiers in hit-and-run attacks, striking from the shadows and vanishing before the enemy could respond. The Dralian family used their natural ability to sense vibrations in the ground to warn of approaching forces. The human miners used their knowledge of explosives to collapse tunnels on enemy squads. And Yuna flew. She soared above the battlefield on her golden wings, drawing enemy fire away from the defenders. She moved too fast to hit, a streak of light against the orange sky, and every time she passed overhead, the refugees fought harder. This was not the fighting style of a queen. There was no grand strategy, no overwhelming force. This was human fighting, desperate, creative, stubborn, beyond all reason. This was the refusal to surrender, even when the mathematics said victory was impossible. The collective commander watched from his warship in growing disbelief. His forces outnumbered the defenders 10-1. His weapons were superior in every way. Yet somehow, impossibly, his soldiers were losing. How? He demanded of his officers. They are refugees. They are broken. They have nothing. His tactical officer stared at the data scrolling across her screen. They have something we do not understand, sir. They keep fighting even when they should be dead. They protect each other even when it makes no tactical sense. It is like they do not know how to give up. The commander made his decision. If his soldiers could not take the station, his ship would destroy from orbit. He gave the order to charge the main weapons. But he was too slow. Taiho had one final trap, a desperate gamble he had hoped he would not need. Buried beneath the station was an old mining drill, modified beyond its original purpose. When the warship's weapons began to charge, Taiho activated it. The drill fired straight up, punching through Titan's thin atmosphere and striking the warship's main engine. It was not enough to destroy the massive vessel, but it was enough to cripple it. The warship listed, its weapons going dark. Emergency systems kicked in, stabilizing the ship, but everyone watching knew the battle was over. The collective retreated. As their ships limped away into the darkness of space, a ragged cheer rose from the defenders. They had won. Against all odds, against all logic, they had won. Yuna landed beside Taiho, who sat exhausted against the wall of the station. His hands were burned from handling overheated equipment. His face was covered in dust and ice. But he was smiling. "You did it," she breathed. Taiho shook his head. "We did it. All of us." He looked down at the celebrating refugees, humans and aliens, embracing, crying, laughing with the pure joy of survival. "This is what we are," he said softly. "Not warriors. Not conquerors. Just people who refuse to let go of each other." Yuna sat beside him, her golden wings wrapping around them both like a shield. "The collective will return," she said. "They cannot allow this to stand. We have embarrassed them in front of the entire galaxy. I know, Taiho said. But we have also shown the entire galaxy something they had forgotten. What is that? Taiho smiled, his eyes closing as exhaustion finally took him. That the small can defeat the mighty. That kindness is not weakness. That hope is the most dangerous weapon in the universe. And across the stars, on 1,000 worlds, the broken began to believe. The news of Titan spread like fire across the galaxy. A small repair station had defeated a collective warship. A human engineer and a broken queen had stood against the most powerful force in known space and refused to fall. The footage of Yuna flying above the battlefield, her golden wings blazing against the orange sky, was seen by billions. The collective tried to suppress the story. They called it propaganda. They said the footage was fake. They threatened anyone who shared it with severe punishment. But stories have a power that empires cannot control. The more the collective tried to silence the tale of Titan, the louder it grew. On occupied worlds, resistance cells used the name Titan as a code word. On refugee ships, parents told their children about the human who gave soup to a queen. In dark corners of space stations, strangers whispered to each other, "Have you heard? There is a place where the broken are welcome." Yuna watched it all unfold with a mixture of wonder and fear. She had been a queen once. She understood power, understood how empires rose and fell. What was happening now was bigger than anything she had ever experienced. "They are making us into symbols," she told Taiho one evening, as they sat in the rebuilt station surrounded by their growing community. "The Golden Queen and the stubborn human. People are telling stories about us that never happened." Taiho nodded slowly. "Does that bother you?" Yuna thought about it for a long moment. "I do not know. Symbols can be dangerous. People kill and die for symbols. I do not want anyone to die for me." "They are not dying for you," Taiho said. "They are dying for what you represent. Hope. The idea that things can be different." He looked out the window at the orange sky, where ships were constantly arriving, now refugees and rebels and dreamers from every corner of the galaxy. "We did not ask for this," he continued. "But maybe that is why it happened. The galaxy was waiting for someone to stand up. We just happened to be the ones who did." Yuna moved closer to him. In the years since she had arrived on Titan, something had grown between them, something she had never expected to find. Taiho was so different from anyone she had ever known. He was small where she was tall, mortal where she was long-lived, simple where she had been complex. Yet he understood her in ways no one else ever had. "What do we do now?" she asked. Taiho smiled. It was the same smile he had given her on the first night, when he handed her a blanket and told her there was soup on the stove, warm, kind, full of impossible hope. "We keep going," he said. "We keep helping people. We keep standing up. And we see what happens." What happened was a revolution. It did not happen all at once. There was no single moment when the galaxy changed. It was more like water wearing away stone slow, steady, unstoppable. The first sign was the other stations. Engineers on moons and asteroids across human space began opening their doors to refugees. They called themselves Titan stations, and they operated by the same simple rules Taiho had established. Everyone was welcome. Kindness was the only law, and no one was turned away. Then came the underground network. Pilots and ship captains started smuggling refugees out of collective territory, guiding them to safety using routes that passed through Titan stations. They called it the Golden Road, named after the color of Yuna's wings. Then came the coalition. Representatives from a dozen species arrived at Titan one day, crowding into Taiho's small station with proposals and plans and hopes. They wanted to formalize what had already begun. They wanted to create an alliance of the broken, the discarded, the forgotten, and new power in the galaxy built not on conquest but on compassion. They called themselves the Mended. Yuna stood before them, her golden wings spread wide, and spoke words that would be remembered for centuries. "We are not building an empire," she said. "Empires are built on the backs of the weak. We are building a family that stretches across the stars. A family where everyone has a place, where no one is left behind, where strength means lifting others up instead of pushing them down." She paused, looking at the faces before her, so many species, so many stories, so many wounds that were slowly healing. "The collective calls us broken. They are right. We are broken, but we are also mending, and a bone that heals grows stronger than before." The coalition was formed that day. Yuna became its first leader, not a queen this time, but a guide. And always, Taiho stood beside her. The collective did not know how to respond. They could not attack Titan again without creating more martyrs. They could not ignore the mended without appearing weak. For the first time in 10,000 years, the great empire that had ruled the galaxy found itself facing something it did not understand. Years passed. The mended grew. What had started as a single station became a movement, then a nation. Then something entirely new, a web of communities spread across the galaxy, connected not by borders or armies, but by shared values and mutual aid. Taiho never asked for recognition. As the mended expanded, as Yuna became one of the most famous figures in galactic history, he quietly returned to his repair station. He fixed ships. He made soup. He welcomed travelers. He remained exactly who he had always been. But everyone knew his name. On the anniversary of the battle, representatives from across the galaxy gathered at Titan to honor the human who had started it all. They brought gifts and speeches and proposals to name stars after him. Taiho accepted their thanks graciously, then gently sent them away. That night, he and Yuna sat alone on the ridge overlooking the crater, watching the stars. "They want to make you immortal," Yuna said. "They want to build statues and write songs and make sure no one ever forgets what you did." Taiho shook his head. "I did not do anything special. I just did what anyone would do." Yuna laughed softly. "That is not true, and you know it. What you did was extraordinary. You looked at a broken queen and saw a person. You looked at a galaxy full of cruelty and chose kindness. You stood against an empire with nothing but soup and stubbornness." She turned to face him, her golden eyes meeting his brown ones. "You changed everything, Taiho. You changed me." Taiho was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out and took her hand. "Do you remember what I told you that first night?" he asked. "When you asked why I was being kind?" Yuna nodded. "You said I looked cold." "I did not tell you the whole truth," Taiho said. "When I saw you standing there, with your broken wings and your broken heart, I saw myself. I saw everyone who had ever been told they were not enough. Everyone who had been thrown away and forgotten." He squeezed her hand. "I was kind to you because kindness was what I wished someone had given me when I was broken. And maybe that is all this is. Maybe the mended, maybe the whole revolution is just people passing kindness forward. One bowl of soup at a time." Yuna leaned against him, her wings wrapping around them both. "They say you are a myth now," she whispered. "The human who turned a punishment into a revolution." Taiho smiled, his eyes still fixed on the stars. "Good. Maybe myths are what the galaxy needs. Maybe stories of kindness and hope can reach places that ships and weapons cannot." They sat in silence, two small figures against the vastness of space. Behind them, the station glowed with warm light, full of people who had found a home. Above them, the stars watched, the same stars that had witnessed empires rise and fall for billions of years. But something had changed. In the dark spaces between worlds, in the hearts of the broken and the lost, a new light was growing. Not the cold light of power or conquest, but the warm light of connection, of compassion, of hope. And it had all started with a human who made soup for a freezing queen. Yuna's message to the collective, broadcast across every system, became the founding document of the Mended. "You gave me to a human as punishment. You thought it would break me. Instead, he taught me what true strength looks like. It looks like compassion. It looks like hope. It looks like humanity. And now we are everywhere. We are the broken who refuse to stay broken. We are the forgotten who remembered each other. We are the mended. And we are just getting started. Across the galaxy, in the shadows and the light, the broken began to rise. And Taiho made more soup.